you're just joining, please change your name to your first and last name, followed by one of the numbers. 0 if you're clueless about what autism is. 1 if you know some, but still need help with understanding. 2 if you know how to spot the signs, but are unsure what to do next. And 3 if you are a master at knowing the signs, what to do, etc. All right, like I told y'all, 5 minutes. We got 12 people in here. That means we got an audience, right? All right. So I am Soror Ford-Godfrey of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, Kappa Theta Zeta Chapter in Sanford. And of course, we all know that April is the month of autism acceptance. They are going away from awareness, so just to keep that in mind. So it's all about accepting. If you guys see, the infinity symbol is up here. They are also going away from the puzzle piece because of people not realizing the puzzle piece was made by people who are not autistic. So now the autistic community are stepping up and saying, nope, this is what represents us. So you will start seeing the infinity symbol more frequently. We have 2 great presenters for you guys today. And after these 2 ladies present their information to you, we will open up the floor for questions. So please just make sure you're writing down something, or, you can type in the chat if you like, and I'll just go back up and read it. All right. So let me go ahead and introduce you to the 2 ladies that we have. So the first we have Miss Brionna McKiver, who is a licensed clinical social worker. She holds a Bachelor of Social Work from Fayetteville State University and a Master of Social Work from Walden University. With over 8 years of experience in mental health, she is licensed as a licensed clinical social work associate. As a training director at Second Chance Counseling Services, Brionna is dedicated to shaping her colleagues' professional development and ensuring high standards of care. With a person-centered approach, Brionna treats each client as an individual and values their expertise in their lives. She specializes in working with families, couples, children, and adolescents, using modalities such as cognitive behavior therapy, solution-focused therapy, and trauma-informed care. Brianna's passion lies in empowering clients to overcome obstacles and cultivate confidence. She encourages ongoing learning to remain at the forefront of best practices in the field. Outside of mental health, Brionna has served as a life skills autism teacher for 2 years and a special education lead teacher for 2 years, bringing valuable skills to her practice. Just a side note, me and her worked together at Overhills Middle School, and she was an excellent teacher. Next up, we have Soror Jasmine Johnson, who is a school psychologist, and that should be a P, not an O, and a behavior analyst. Soror Jasmine Johnson is a licensed school psychologist and behavior analyst, serving as the owner of Breaking Barriers Behavior Services in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And yes, you heard correctly, owner. Her company specializes in providing ABA therapy services to children diagnosed with autism and other disabilities. Additionally, Jasmine works as a school psychologist with various districts in North Carolina. Since 2020, Jasmine has held the role of NC State Autism Coordinator for Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, and she was a member of the Zeta Phi Beta National Autism Team from 2021 to 2022. Her overarching goal is to educate Black and Brown communities about autism and valuable resources. Side note, I am happy to be under her leadership as I am on the team of autism for the state of North Carolina for Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. So I am going to give the floor. I am going to give the floor to Ms. McKiver. So I'm going to stop sharing in case she needs to share. If not, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much. Again, I want to thank you all for allowing me to present on today. And my goal for today is just to definitely give some psychoeducation on autism while also providing you all with some strategies just to help you all when you are working with these individuals at home or in the community. And I am grateful to be working alongside Miss Jasmine Johnson, who is currently working in the field. So that was good to know. So hopefully we can connect afterward so I can just, get some more information from you because I love learning. So as I'm teaching you all, I'm also teaching myself. So feel free if y'all want to jump in, ask a question as I'm presenting, as long as Miss Tavia approves of that. But I don't mind you all just asking questions and we both can expound on it, okay? And I am sharing. Let me figure out how to do this. Share. Okay. All right, everyone see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. All right, so first off, we're going to just talk about what exactly is autism spectrum disorder. And this is a developmental disorder characterized by challenges with social, communication, and interaction, restricted interest, and repetitive behaviors. It is a spectrum disorder, meaning that it manifests differently in each individual. There are three different levels that it ranges from, which is level 1, severity, meaning they require support. Level 2 is requiring substantial support, and then level 3 requiring very substantial support. So in the areas of social communication challenges, these individuals usually have a difficulty understanding and using verbal and nonverbal communication cues, such as facial expressions, tones of voice, and gestures. So when you think of that part, if you're engaging with a child that has autism spectrum disorder, you may be smiling at them and saying, "How was your day?" And they could just be looking at you like, "What are you saying to me?" So that will be an example of the social communication challenges that they may experience in not being able to communicate on that level. The next area is the restricted interest. They usually have an intense focus on specific topics or activities, often to the exclusion of other interests. So for example of this, some of these individuals have a fixation on trains, elevators, different type of languages. I actually worked with a young fellow who was learning Japanese, and it was really cool of how quick he was able to understand it and actually speak in it. So I like to say that that is actually a gift, even though it's known under the umbrella of a disorder. Sometimes they usually have gifts in their own little way. So later down in the slides, I'll discuss how we can support these individuals and work with them with this disorder. The next one is repetitive behaviors. This looks like them repeating certain actions or movements, such as hand flapping, rocking, or repeating words or phrases. Sometimes you'll see hand flapping is like this. They're moving their hands, and it's due to the lack of sensory input. And a lot of times they call it stemming, meaning they need to continue to do a certain activity or gesture to help them like with their sensory processing and overloading. The next one is sensory sensitivities. This is a heightened or reduced sensitivity to sensory input such as lights, sounds, textures, or taste. While I was working as an EC teacher, there was a lot of times where I was having class, but the lights would be off because I just noticed how they acted with the lights on versus the lights being off. And so it took a while for me to actually understand how to work with these individuals. Because I will say, once I started the school, I was then put into the autism class, and I had no idea in how to help the individuals. But I will say that is when educating myself on it. I watched YouTube, I attended trainings just to help me, serve that population. And, whatever field you all are working in, that is the importance of continuing to get your CEUs, no matter what it is, because you can get that education in areas that you feel like you may not be competent in. So I love competence and making sure we are aware of how we're working with different individuals. Do we have any questions so far? No? Okay. All right. So as I was doing my research, I came across this chart, which I found it on Get Goalie down there at the bottom. Make sure I tag them. But it just shows how autism spectrum is not linear at all. And I know we may hear that very often, but I feel like this just shows a variety of different colors. It shows a variety of patterns, just to let you know that autism will not look the same for everybody. You can put all the autism people in a line, and they're going to show you different differences, interests, repetitions, perceptions, all across the individuals that are in that line. And autism, back in, I think I want to say 2013, they combined a lot of the disorders and combined them together. So that's why it's under an umbrella for autism spectrum. So it is, I would say it is hard to actually diagnose someone with autism because, again, it does not look the same for everyone, and they all have their abilities. And sometimes some may be higher than others, sometimes there may be lower. But if you think about those levels that I gave in the beginning, that's how they're able to determine the level of support that these individuals need. As we get the research and things, the terms like using high functioning and low functioning, a lot of individuals are trying to get away from that because it can be harmful. And again, it just categorizes these individuals and not just looking at them as who they are and who they are presenting as. All right, so the steps in diagnosing autism. The first thing is, as a parent or as a friend or a relative, anyone, you must make sure that you're paying attention to the developmental milestones that these individuals are meeting. So that's why usually when you go to doctor's appointments, they're always asking you, depending on the milestone that they're at, they're going to go down the list and ask you, has this individual met these milestones? And not even just children, adults can also be diagnosed with autism, but it's very important for them to have that history of their developmental milestones and whether they met those or not. So if we're looking at 2 months, as you look at this chart, it'll kind of give you a guideline of what milestones that these children have to meet during this time. And so as you are, raising your young one or seeing a friend raising their child, sometimes you may notice like, okay, he's 2 months, but on tummy time, he's not holding his head up or he's just laying there. It's just different type of signs that you have to make sure that you're looking for when you're working with this individual. Not saying it's going to be specifically autism spectrum disorder, but the earlier you see the signs, and as soon as you see those signs that you talk to a professional, it will just then help you as well as your child to ensure that they have the necessary resources in place. Any questions in regards to the chart? No?
Question about the chart, but I did have a question for the previous slide.
Yeah.
Why are they considering the high functioning and low functioning words as being harmful?
Because it categorizes them, and I feel like, as I was doing my research, that was primarily what it was. Kind of like what you talked about in regards to the puzzle piece, and how individuals that were not autistic made that puzzle piece. But the more you go into it, and the education we get, I just feel like, it just categorizes them. They're just autism. Basically like their name, they are who they are. We don't really have to say what they are or what difficulties they have. Ms. Johnson, would you like to add on to that?
Yeah, I would just say it from the autism community, I think as a whole, that's kind of why they're getting away from it. But I think these words were honestly put out there and used for the benefit of helping caregivers kind of like be able to handle it better. And just like Asperger's, when people say, well, they have that versus, but it is autism as a whole. So I think it was kind of one of those things when they were learning about autism in general, trying to figure out just what to say and how to say, and things of that nature.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. So I did want to go over some red flags that you may see in regards to not meeting those developmental milestones. So some individuals may not show big smiles or other warm, joyful expressions by the age of 6 months. Some of them do not have the back and forth sharing of sounds or smiles or facial expressions. So this looks like them mimicking you as you're talking to them and trying to get them to just show those facial expressions. The next one is no babbling by 12 months. So, those words where they're at the point of trying to talk, that is definitely important. No back and forth gestures such as pointing, showing, reaching, or waving by 12 months. Absolutely saying no words by 16 months, and then no meaningful 2-word phrases by 24 months or 2 years old. Because that by that time they should be saying those phrases and at the point where they can say 1 word or 2 words as it's stated here. And then no response to their names by 12 months. And so I like how the way the culture is going now, especially with us having so much knowledge, much more knowledge about autism. When you're going to the pediatric appointments, or there's so many people working in the mental health field, and as parents have questions or just caregivers, period, there's always someone that they can go talk to and just, if they're noticing any signs, they have tests here just to see, and again, to implement the early intervention strategies that are needed for these children. All right, so strategies for supporting these individuals with autism. Again, early diagnosis allows for early intervention and support, which can help improve outcomes and quality of life for individuals with autism. It is essential for the healthcare professionals to be trained and recognize the early signs of autism. So I know I did state that there are some people that have the knowledge, but if you actually want to get them tested for autism, you have to make sure that you go to the correct healthcare professional. So, how to support these individuals? You all, routines and structure is so important. The slightest thing, okay, let me give an example. Let's say that you're getting them ready for school and you forget to allow them to sit at the table and eat their breakfast, but you choose for them to eat it in the car. That alone will disrupt their entire day because their routine has been broken. And I know it's hard to balance as being parent, and we're dealing with our own feelings, but when dealing with individuals with autism, you just have to make sure that you maintain that structure, because it'll take them a while to calm down, and then sometimes it will, they can calm down instantly, but that's the important of them having those calm down strategies as well to help with that emotional regulation. Another support is visual supports. This looks like we have a daily schedule, or this week for lunch, we're going to have pizza and it's actually a picture of pizza. Or we're going to have fries and it's going to be a picture of fries. Or they have communication boards where it shows faces, like smiling means happy, a tear means sad. There are different visual supports that you can use, and that is really helpful for individuals with autism spectrum disorder. Another one is sensory accommodations. So we have to make sure that we are creating an environment that the individuals are able to be comfortable in. So as I stated earlier, as I was a teacher, I did have the lights off. And I had to advocate a lot for different sensory things I needed in the classroom. So if you're working at a place and you know that you have individuals there with autism or in the school system, it's very important for you to advocate. And I will say it is tough, it is difficult, because everybody does not have the knowledge in knowing how to support them. But if you're in that place, you have to do what you can to advocate for those needs. Again, that looks like noise canceling headphones when their fire alarms are going on in school, and that scares some of them. It's important for them to have that access to that. Adjusting the lighting, or talking with parents about different texture of the clothing, because sometimes parent may know that their child have a diagnosis, but not really know how to work with them. So again, if you don't know, just reach out to somebody that maybe can help you or provide you with any strategies to help them. Another one is communication strategies. You want to make sure that you're using concise language and simple instructions when you're providing support for these individuals. It's important for you to allow time to process. When you ask them a question, they may not answer you right away, because they are processing what they're saying, what they're thinking, how they may be feeling. So it's important to give them that time. And we have to have patience. I know patience, we are trying to work with that every day. We are faced with so many different things on a day-to-day, but when we're working with our autism population, we really do have to have patience. And something that may take you 5 minutes to get over, it could take them an entire day to work through it and get through it. But that's where you got to be able to have flexibility and boundaries, where you can take your break, give yourself 2 minutes, walk away, come back, and be able to still meet them where they are, talk calmly, and work with those individuals just to help them calm down. Okay. All right, so I'm at the end of my presentation. Anybody has any questions?
All right, good job. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Who was talking? Okay.
Oh, that was me.
All right, thank you so much for that presentation. I learned a lot. I took a lot of notes, as you can see. Oh, well, you can't see, but hey, it is what it is. So I appreciate you. Now I'm going to give the floor to Soror Johnson. The floor is yours.
All right, hello. I actually am not, I don't like talking, y'all. It's crazy. But hold on, let me pull it up. I'm nervous. I get nervous. All right. All right, so I did my slideshow on early warning signs and the evaluation process. And then I'm also going to hit on a couple of resources that tend to go hand in hand with individuals with autism. Ms. Brionna did go over some of those things, so I'm just going to hit on those because she already kind of talked about them. But again, if you have any questions, just stop me. So again, our learning objectives, we're going to look at characteristics and key factors. discussing the steps to diagnosing, some screening tools that are tend to be used, and just overall resources. So again, early warning signs that we look for, your child speaking later than the typical or not at all. Repetitive language or movement, such as repeating the same words, the hand flapping. Atypical nonverbal communication, which includes avoiding eye contact, giving few facial expressions, or having a monotone. Prefers solitary or parallel play, meaning, you know, they will play next to a kid, but they will not interact with the kids that's playing right there with brother, sister. No, it doesn't matter anyway. Warning signs, I was just hitting on parallel play, how they will play next to children in the class, brother and sister, sibling, and they won't play with. They won't do like cooperative play, meaning, okay, let's stand here and we have to do this. And imaginary play, which I hit on a little further down. Extremely distressed by changes, like Ms. Brionna has spoke about, including new foods or changes in the schedule. So just if a typical day is, you know, we eat breakfast, get in the car, go to school, that's what they expect every day, a lot of preference for predictable structured play over spontaneous or make-believe, and then strong persistent interest on a specific topic, a part of a toy or an item. So they, you know, want to consistently talk about cats or trains or dogs, or they only want to play with this type of toy. And again, all of this is different per child. Everybody's not the same. So why is early detection important? The earlier you learn something, the better prepared you will be, of course. The earlier your child is diagnosed, the better chance you as a parent and caregiver can help your child improve on their quality of life. Just because you know earlier, I can prepare. I know what I'm looking for. I know what I need to do in our life. Let's set you up. And detecting autism early can help parental relationships. Parents become aware of challenges ahead of time and are able to prepare for that physically and emotionally. Just like anything, having a child with autism, especially depending on how, which level, it can be taxing on the parent and caregiver. So the earlier you know, you can kind of prepare, even though just like with children that are, you know, typical, you can't prepare for everything, but you can try your best and prepare as much as possible. So diagnosing autism can be difficult. There is no exact medical test. So I can't just go run one test and this says, yes, you have autism, okay? Doctors look at the child's behavior and development to make the diagnosis. Diagnosing ASD can be difficult. ASD can be detected as early as 18 months. So by age 2, a diagnosis by an experienced professional can be considered very reliable. So like Ms. Brionna said, those early milestones that we're looking at, you know, when you go to the doctor, when you've had your baby at the 6 month, 9 month, 12 month, they're asking you to do those checklists. Make sure we're being honest with those checklists, because those are the things that we should be paying attention of to say, okay, maybe there is something going on. So just making sure when we're doing those things as early as we're noticing those things, we are being honest with ourselves and making sure and making any concern aware to the doctor. So some diagnostic tools, they usually rely on 2 main sources of information: that parent caregiver description of their child's development, and then a professional observation of the child's behavior. So again, there is no just regular test that I can run that says my child will have autism or they do have autism. So when they're doing these evaluations, a lot of this relies on you. And the best thing you can do as a parent or caregiver is be honest. Don't try to sugarcoat it like, oh, well, they might do this. You know, be really honest, because you're doing more hindering than helping by not being honest about what's going on and what your concerns are. The professional will do an observation with your child. It could be in a setting of, a comfortable room where there are toys. There may be at your home. It just depends on who's doing it and what's the modality that they've set up for their company to do the testing. But they will do that observation. There are certain tests that will allow them to ask different questions for the individual to use. How do they play with this toy? How are they responding to my question? Those are kind of the things that go into that professional observation of the child's behavior when diagnosing. So some commonly used assessments, you will see people use the ADIR, which is the Autism Diagnostic Interview. Again, this is mainly a clinical interview. It focuses on the behavior in three main areas: reciprocal social interaction, communication and language, and that restrictive and repetitive behavior. It's appropriate for children from 18 months and up. The Autism Diagnostic Observation Schedule, also known as the ADOS, that's one that can be commonly used. It shows social interaction, play, imaginative, make-believe, use of materials. This one, I can tell you, it takes about 3 hours to do. It comes in a huge case. They'll carry around all kind of toys and things with it. Not as many people use it as much just because of the time consuming. You have the CARS, which is the Childhood Autism Rating Scale. This is a brief assessment suitable for those children of 2 and over. It includes items from 5 areas. Each item covers a particular characteristic, ability, or behavior. Then you have the GARS, which is also known as the Gilliam Autism Rating Scale. This you'll see this mainly more in the schools. They give it to the parent, caregiver, and the teacher, and it just asks different questions, and it's a rating scale. And there are a couple others out there as well. The ASRS, the Autism Spectrum Rating Scale, also 70-something questions that they give to the teacher or the parent and everything like that. So you may have seen those, especially you all that work in the school system, you may have come across your desk once or twice. So the evaluation process kind of goes into 4 components: record review, parent interview, the direct testing of the individual, and then a feedback session. So in that parent interview, again, they're going over the medical history, social emotional behavior, adaptive behavior. A lot of times for adaptive behavior, they are using another checklist. Some of you guys have probably seen it in the school system, the Vineland or the ABAS. Those are used commonly for that adaptive behavior. And then the cognitive development. That usually takes about an hour, give or take, just depending on who's doing it and their experience and how they do their process. Then, of course, the direct testing portion, usually, like I stated before, is that behavioral observation, any administration of standardized tests. So if you are doing autism with a psychological, just what are they doing? Depends. The psychologist may complete tests in 3 main areas: the cognitive, adaptive, and the specific ASD assessment. This process can take up to 2 hours. Now, if the child is nonverbal, it usually takes a little less time because there are some things that they can't do just due to their verbal ability at the time. And then, of course, the feedback session. After the evaluation, the psychologist will have a feedback session with the parent, just going over those results. That's when you will get your evaluation as a whole, letting you know what they found. They will give you the recommendations that they feel are best for you. Usually this takes anywhere from 3 to 8 weeks in between that testing period and you getting this feedback. It could take a little bit longer. It just depends on when you do that first session, they say in that first session. Essentially, an ASD diagnosis is based upon past history, test results, behavioral observations, and the psychologist's clinical judgment. So those are kind of the process. A big thing I wanted to hit on very slightly is the difference in diagnosing school versus medical. So I know I'm in the Fayetteville area, and I know this chapter is based in Sanford. So I know we're in some of these areas that are a little more rural. And so our parents get a little confused about what's going on. And so I like to really stress this because I get calls every other day when I'm trying to get kids into ABA therapy with this diagnosing stuff. So a school diagnosis and a medical diagnosis are two totally, completely different things, unfortunately. Okay. A school psychologist, as myself, in the school system, if we go in, do the assessment, and say, okay, your child falls under the category of autism, we are using the disability category. It's not a diagnosis. It's not called a diagnosis. Just the rules of state of North Carolina. That's just how they do it. Now, if you go to a psychologist outside of the school system and they're doing this outside the school system, so they're licensed on the outside, or it's a medical doctor that does it, a psychiatrist who does it, that is considered your medical diagnosis. Okay, so your child can have a medical diagnosis of autism, and in the school they could not have an IEP because it may not be affecting them to the point that they need accommodation. That can happen. Some parents don't want an IEP with their child, and if they don't feel like it's affecting their education, they won't let the psychologist or let the teachers know, hey, they have an autism diagnosis. If you come in already with the autism diagnosis into the school, and you're like, hey, my child needs an IEP, you can skip some of the steps that the school has to go through. So that school psychologist can review the paperwork and say, hey, I definitely believe this is good. I'll accept it. It's been done within the last year or two. Let's move forward with it, and we can develop an IEP based off of what they need and what the teacher is saying. Okay. The school diagnosis can help you in the sense of helping you fight for your child to get a medical diagnosis. Let's say you just have a doctor that's just a difficult doctor and they're like, well, I don't see it, so this can help you fight for that and advocate for your kid. Individuals that are under 4 years old, if they are under 4 and they are showing any signs, symptoms, and they've been diagnosed, let's say in an early preschool setting, they can use this and start getting diagnoses if they have Medicaid. What happens is Medicaid requires that by the time they turn 4, they need to be officially medically diagnosed. But this can give you a head start because I don't know if you guys know, around here, the list is about 2 years long to get diagnosed outside of school for autism. It's just a shortage of psychologists. We don't have them. And then a lot of providers don't want to take certain insurances. So that makes the fight even harder. So that's kind of the difference in the diagnosing in the school versus the medical. As far as resources, I just tagged in. These are some of the ones that typically you see with children with autism, that they usually are getting these kind of services. I should have put services. You usually will see occupational therapy and autism. In occupational therapy, they're learning, the independence of dressing, eating, grooming, bathroom, fine motor skills, coloring, cutting, those different things. Of course, depending on the severity, the number of sessions per week is based on that individual's needs. So you'll see a lot of individuals with ASD with occupational therapy. Speech therapy is another big one. This is used for, greeting, just using basic language, demanding things, requesting things, because sometimes they don't have that ability. Sometimes they have that ability, however, they're not able to follow rules in a conversation. They're not able to transition topics in a conversation. They don't understand, especially our older ones, they may not understand those nonverbal cues, that space that you need in between, the personal space. So those are things that they don't understand, and speech therapy can help with that. And of course, I was going to tie in ABA therapy. A lot of people are learning about ABA therapy and kind of what it is. So ABA therapy with autism, it applies our understanding of behavior. The goal is to increase the behaviors that are helpful and decrease harmful and effective learning. So those behaviors like our meltdowns, some of the stimming, it may be stimming, but it may be affecting other things going on around them. So ABA therapists kind of come in and work on behavior reduction. They work on the behavioral issues. They help children with functional communication. Let's say they are nonverbal and they're doing a lot of hitting. Well, I'm going to hit you too if I can't tell you what I'm trying to tell you. I'm just getting it out. And so ABA therapy works on different ways for them to have functional communication skills. And then ABA therapy can help with the man learning to man and help shaping those words that speech is working with. So it's good that they work kind of hand in hand together sometimes. And overall, that is my presentation, guys. I hope it was helpful. If you raised your hand or anything, I didn't see it because of how my screen was set up. But yeah, so thank you.
All right, thank you, Soror Johnson. So, anybody have any questions for her? That was a lot to digest. So, if you would like to ask questions to either presenter, you can take yourself off mute and go ahead. This is now our panel side of things before we get to the money side.
Okay, I have a question. So if the system is 2 to 3 years behind because there's lack of psychologists, what does a parent do in that situation? You know, as far as help, because I could only assume a parent wouldn't know that their child is autistic unless they were able to go through that process that you have stated. Yeah, like what happens then? I mean, does the child fall through a crack? You get what I'm saying? Like you say 2 to 3 years, a child is almost starting school. So how does that work?
I like to tell my parents, you have that advocacy piece. That's really when you have to fight and advocate for as much as you can. I like to tell my parents when they come to me for ABA therapy, if you don't have the right documentation and I'm telling you what you need and you're like, look, the doctor is saying X, Y, and Z, all I can tell you, I'm going to fight for you on my end with the insurance. Okay. I'm going to go to these people and say, look, this is why we need this. This is important. This is why, and try to give as much paperwork as I can to justify why these services are needed until that official diagnosis can come in. A lot of you do, unfortunately, some do fall through the cracks if they have someone that is just not persistent in it. You may have to go outside your comfort zone in saying, okay, well, Fayetteville right now has a 2-year wait, but I may have to drive to Charlotte and can get on in 8 months or something, you know? So it does unfortunately become an issue that I have not figured out how to fix it. I've had insurances as well saying the same thing. Like, I'm so sorry. I don't know what to tell you. It's a system that is just fractured.
Wow.
And I could speak from personal experience. So my son, he was nonverbal up to the age of 3, right before he turned 3. So of course, learning about the early end program that Cumberland County schools have. So that's how he was, because he was nonverbal. They assisted me with filling out the correct paperwork. And at the time he had Medicaid. So they provided speech therapy and play therapy for him. So being that he was nonverbal, they started off with teaching him sign language to get him to communicate effectively with us. And then from there, he did start school early. So at the age of 3, he transitioned to programs through the schools where he was going 3 days a week because they didn't consider him severe. where they will go 5 days a week. So he started off going to school 3 days a week. And then by the time it was time for him to go to pre-K, they automatically accepted him for him to stay in school for 5 days. So he had a school diagnosis. And right now he's the 10. So with that wait list, they had put him on the wait list for about 3 years ago. So he finally been actually that we're going through the evaluation process to get medically diagnosed for my son.
Wow.
So yes, yeah, you definitely got to advocate and just ask around, definitely in the school system. And I was fortunate to have very supportive individuals throughout the school, throughout the years to help walk me through the process.
And I'd also like to add, I know y'all can't see my face, but Kish Grant, and I work for Families and Communities Rising, which is Head Start and Early Head Start. And we're also very big advocates on making sure that we get our students, you know, all the assessments and things that they need as far as diagnosis and things like that. But the other thing is with that waiting list, so the schools that I currently serve are in Orange and Durham counties, and the wait list is just as long out there also. And sometimes with smaller children, it's very difficult to get an autism diagnosis, especially for girls. It's very hard because something about us as women, we, even at a young age, we tend to mirror and, you know, echo what people are doing. So it's hard to actually see when it's there. However, even though there are times where you may not be able to get that diagnosis and you may not be an ABA therapist or a speech therapist, but that doesn't mean that you as a parent or as a caregiver can't also do some of the things that they do to help your child until that diagnosis does happen. For instance, I had a student a couple years ago, he's going to first grade now. And we knew when he first came in, he needed speech. He's not, you know, on the autism spectrum. However, we know that there's a need where you can't understand any of the words that he's saying. We put in for referrals. Like I said, he was in my pre-K class. He's going to first grade. He still has not gotten speech therapy, even though it's needed. However, because we were so adamant on making sure that I know I'm not a speech therapist, but that doesn't mean I don't know how to talk. Doesn't mean I don't know how to encourage you to, even if we can't understand everything, I can still encourage you to use your words. And so now when he came in where you couldn't understand anything, now once you've been around him, you can understand enough. So it's still things that you can do as you wait. You just have to make sure that you're pushing through to be able to do it.
So have there, let me see. Could there be a such thing as a misdiagnosis? And I say that because, you know, sometimes we have children who are nonverbal, but like my son, my last son, he's in Appalachian State. We thought with him growing up, we thought he was autistic because he really couldn't talk. So for years we couldn't understand what he was saying. But of course we found out he wasn't autistic. He had fluid in his ears. So like in a situation like that, have there ever been like any type of like misdiagnosis? Because like he started like his speech therapy, I think he was maybe like 5 or 6 years old. We really just didn't know what was wrong with him. And we were military, so we dealt with EFMP on well, I still call it Fort Bragg, on Fort Liberty for many years until we literally realized that he just had fluid in his ears, which he had actually to have, he had to get tubes. And of course, he had to go through, like I said, years. I think he stopped speech therapy when he was in 8th grade because they didn't want him to, you know, go throughout high school taking speech therapy. But he's fine now.
There definitely is a possibility that there can be a misdiagnosis because the system isn't perfect. And like it stated, there's no exact test that says you have autism. Like I
Right.
can't just run. So based on the behaviors and stuff and things that may have been at that time, what they thought. And I have people on the flip side where they believe their child has autism, but the doctor or the psychologist saying no, they don't. They just need this and that. So it definitely can be.
Okay.
All right, any additional questions? Actually, I have a question. If you could expound a little bit more on that parallel play, so I can recognize that sign, because that was my first time hearing that actually.
Sure. So that's just basically when a child will play, they'll just play next to other kids. They will not engage in the activity with them. If they engage, it's because they want that specific toy, and then they'll take it and then just, you know, do what they want to do with it. But they will just play next to kids. They will not interact with them at all on any level. And they'll just, it's like they're not even there, but they're sitting right next to them. They'll just kind of mind their own business, playing whatever, and just parallel to the children that are right there playing.
For clarifying. Any additional questions? Because I didn't see any threes in the chat, so that means you guys don't know everything. Well, if not, I want to thank you both for all the wonderful information. Like I said, I got a lot of notes. I thank you guys. They have not sent me their bill yet, and hopefully they're not. But anyway, I appreciate you guys. Now, for the people who showed up, and majority are sorors, so sorors, if you do not want to participate in this gift card giveaway, please go ahead and tell me now so I can take your name off the list.
You could take my name off the list.
You can take my name off the list.
All right. And I'm taking Kendra off because she's not paying attention anyway.
Don't do that.
No, ma'am. I am paying attention, so keep my name on the list.
Listen, cheating. Okay. All right, you guys. So I'm about to share my screen, so y'all don't think I am cheating. And yes, presenters, I also put yours on the list as well. All right, let me share my screen again. Can you move, child? All right, y'all ready? Let's see who winning. All right. You are the lucky $50 winner. You will receive an email from me shortly, so you can tell me, well, so we can talk about the logistics of the gift card and things like that. And other than that, if no
Can
one
I just ask a question?
hey girl, I'm about to say no one has any additional questions, but go ahead.
Miss Brenda, is that you from Fairview?
I tell her she don't answer, she just listening. We're not gonna give her the money.
I think that's Miss Brenda from work. So
It is
okay.
They had the same email type of address, so I'm gonna say yes, that's your Miss Brenda.
Woo, got Miss Brenda. All right.
Tell her that she'll give you $10. All right, so we don't have any additional questions or anything. Like I said, please get out the camera, sir. Thank you so much, ladies, for your time. Thank you for everyone who showed up for this presentation on autism. I learned a lot. I do not need you in the camera. Thank you. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and stop this recording. Well, I do in a minute. So anyway, if you don't have anything else, that is the end of the presentation. Again, I thank you. You guys rock.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.